Yeah.
And then sure enough, there was like this bomber Swell. I was living in Rockaway. And it's like, this is actually a pretty sick story, that the night before, it was actually September 10th, I was at Connolly's in Rockaway Beach, iconic Rockaway Beach watering hole. And it's like I was hanging out with two guys, God rest in peace, Richie Allen and Steve Belson, both of them. Belson was the doorman at Connolly's, and Richie Allen, I went to high school with at Malloy. We were both on the Malloy swim team together, and we were talking about the Swell coming up. All right, sorry if I take all the air here.
No,
roll.
Okay, cool. So
we're
anyway,
clinging to your words.
So they're like, what are you gonna do for this big Swell? Because it was pretty hyped. It was like, this is like, this is pre-New York surf, pre-internet. Like, it's so easy to forecast Swell like
this
it is today.
was what we were watching the Weather Channel with smooth jazz.
It was. It really wasn't as easy as it is today. But we'll get into that. But hanging out at the bar, and I'm like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go out to the East End because like I lived out there, during college, and my parents moved out to Fire Island, which we really didn't cover, but they still live out there. They're year-round residents out in Fire Island, Ocean Bay Park. I'm like, I think I'm gonna go surf out in the East End. It's a long period Swell. And we all know what that's about. And first off, those are the last time I saw those two guys. One guy I went to high school with, Steve Belson, I wasn't really good friends with, but he was the bouncer at Connolly's. And I went out there, surfed the 10th, Swell was pumping, and I stayed over and then surfed the 11th, and I was in the water at dawn. And then about 10 o'clock in the morning, I surfed from like dawn, whatever time the first light was, probably that time of year, September, probably before 6 o'clock, right? And surfed till 10. I was like gassed. I'm like, I'm going to come in. It was pumping, like 6 to 8 foot. I think I was at trailer park, and I paddled into the car park, and 85 degrees out, sunny, perfect point break surf, wind offshore, like the conditions we all as surfers dream of, and like literally. People just catatonic in the parking lot, and like radios blaring, so surreal, and like a knucklehead, I drag my ass up to the beach and I say, like, hey, what's going on? It's like, it's not that big out there. Is anybody to surf? And like, I think the first person who come up to me and said, the trade center collapsed, and I was like, oh shit, I'm a fireman. I wonder how it affects me. And then somebody else in the car park said, yeah, I am too. I'm checking my phone now. We all got recalled. We all got to turn into the city. But actually, one part of this whole story, and not to take all the air, is that while I was in a lineup, as I was paddling in, a woman on like a mid-length or whatever, was like paddling out. And she actually said to me, she's like, oh, the World Trade Center got hit by a plane. And my response to her was like, oh, you know what? I went to Proby school with a guy from 10 and 10 across the street. They probably got a good fire there. But what I thought was like, I was thinking like a Cessna or something.
Yeah.
Like, no way would ever think what happened. The event that changed the world, the modern world that we live in right now. So like all that other story, then I ended up bombing into, no way I was going to stay and surf. Actually, there was one guy, supposedly said, he was like, it's already happened. I'm going to stay and surf. I'm like... the last thing I was going to think about. But believe me, and nothing. I lived to do nothing but surf. But I bombed into the city, got my gear, headed down there, went back to the firehouse, and then from there, it's like you could take it from the rest from there. You know what I'm saying?
And then you worked down there, and you were down there in the recovery, breathing in all the fumes and everything too.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I was detailed there for a month, and then like even the first. That was like a week later, but even like I was down there the next. Listen, my dad was one of the people. My dad was actually buried in the building. My dad was one of the chief's aide, and the guy that he was driving that day, Donald Burns, died. God rest his soul. My dad hasn't been the same since then. And I pray for him too every single day. It's funny I pray for him, but I'm not a really religious guy. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In my head, I think I just wish the best for my father. I should say. I shouldn't say pray, but you know what I'm saying. It's like a euphemism.
It's okay, man.
It's a euphemism, But
it's still in the firehouses now. Are there vets from that day?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, are you kidding me? All the guys that listen, I lost. God, I don't know how many guys exactly. I probably should, but probably 5 or 6 guys I went to Proby school with. I went to the academy with. That were literally like only on the job 6-7 months. That died that day, and then there's guys like Richie Allen I went to high school with, and I mean, it's full on heavy. And you know what? It's like, as much as, never forgets, it's a bumper sticker. And for us, it's not more than that.
Right.
But you know what? We had to rebuild. We've done that. And I think New York rebuilds.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, if we're going to get off into this like deep thing, the goal of terrorism is to disrupt our way of life, our American way of life. You know what I'm saying? And they've fully, the dead bodies, that's one thing. But you know what? Just our everyday thought, the fact that they've been able to disrupt that is the ultimate goal of terrorism. Don't you think?
Absolutely. So, Brian, where were you on 9/11? What was going on for you that day?
Okay, so I was actually living in the city at the time. It was actually the end of my stint in the city, and I was running late as usual to get back to Long Beach to go surfing, and I probably left around 8 in the morning, and I was already anxious because
The waves were pumping.
The waves were pumping. It was sunny. It was offshore. It was 6 to 8 foot, and so that's what I was doing. I was driving to Long Beach. I was on the Grand Central Parkway, listening to Howard Stern, as like a lot of people in New York City or throughout the country were doing. And he was talking about his experience at the strip club with Pamela Anderson, right? Like it's like so crazy that I remember that, and that's when the first plane hit, and they thought it was a small plane, and no one really had any of the details yet from their side. So that's where I was at.
And then like when you got to Long Beach, what happened?
All right, so I kept driving, and I'm listening to Howard, and then the second plane hits, and Howard knew right away. He's like, that motherfucker Bin Laden, like he knew. It was crazy.
Wow.
And I came through Island Park. I got to the Long Beach Bridge. I get up on the Long Beach Bridge, and that's when we were like starting to film for Couch Tour, I guess, at that time, but not even like it wasn't even like happening yet. But we were just doing a bunch of filming, and I had my camera, and I stopped on the Long Beach Bridge, and that was my first view of the Trade Centers on fire, which I recorded for about a minute from the Long Beach Bridge, and I was like sick to my stomach, and I just put the camera back in the car.
What were your thoughts going through your head when you saw that?
It was just so surreal. I couldn't, like everybody, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And I'm 25 miles away in Long Beach at the time. And I'm just, I couldn't believe what those people must have been going through.
What did you do after that? Did you go back? Did you go surf?
So, well, here's what I did. I actually met up with an old good friend of mine, and he had an apartment just off the beach in Long Beach. And like I said, our plan was to surf, but we wound up putting on the news and sitting in his apartment and watching the footage like everybody else. He unfortunately lost a brother-in-law in the Trade Center that day.
Wow.
So it was crazy. And I'll be honest, like surfing was the furthest thing from my mind at that point. I started the day with the intentions of it's going to be this amazing hurricane surf day. And, by the end of the day, I could care less if I went surfing or not. Yeah. At least on that particular day,
Yeah. No, I think a lot of us it was like, it lost, to me, like surfing kind of lost meaning almost, that day. It was like, what's the point almost?
However,
yeah,
a lot of people found some sort of
Solace.
I don't some comfort, and I was all for that. I mean, I was like, go surf, like, you know, do what you have to do. But for me, I think I was just, you know, caught up in watching all the footage on television, and I had friends in the city, and, you know, my girlfriend at the time was in Manhattan and trying to, you know, get her home, and just, you know, trying to connect with people to see if everyone was okay. And, you know, so that's what we were doing.
Did you go back in the city that night, or did you stay out in Long Beach? What did
you know what? I wound up staying at my buddies in Lido. I mean, I don't know if I was there a week, but I was definitely there for, you know, the better part of the next week or so. You know, I didn't return to the city for a while.
What was it like when you got back to the city, when you did go back? What were some of the things you remember?
I just remember how quiet everything was. The streets were kind of quiet. There were no planes coming overhead, and everybody was kind of walking around with this blank gaze, this you know, empty stare, and it was just a strange time. And like I said, I don't think I lived in the city for maybe a month after 9/11. I was already kind of moving back to Long Beach, so sometime in the beginning of October. So I really wasn't in the city that much longer.
Yeah. Now you are a New York firefighter.
Yes.
And how many years have you been in that profession now?
I'm coming up on 18 years.
Wow. What I guess the question is, like, first, did that have an impact on you to join the force at all? And was that ever in your mind when you joined?
So I had taken the firefighter test about, what was it? 2 years before 9/11. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I had taken the firefighter test about 2 years before. The written test was 2 years before. The physical test was 1 year before 9/11. And it takes a couple of years for them to go through the list. So in all honesty, I don't know if I would have become a fireman if 9/11 didn't happen. And that's really unfortunate to say, but they obviously lost so many people, and then they had so many people retire afterwards as well, and they really had to fill those ranks again. So quite possibly one of the reasons they got to me was because of 9/11. So yeah, I thought about that a lot. And I guess there's a sense of guilt because of that. But at the same time, it was, you know, a great opportunity.
What do you like? What was the culture like coming into it then after 9/11? Like,
so, you know, we were like the new guys. It was like that was like, you know, that's the date. You were either on before that or after that. There was, you know, no separation. That was it.
Right.
It was, and you know, I was one of the guys after, so I could never experience what these guys went through, you know?
Yeah.
So I got like the, you know, the kind of the tail end of working with, you know, when I got there, you know, 90% of the guys were down at the World Trade Center, where, you know, over the years that number has dwindled and dwindled to now where you know, there's only a few that I work with that were working at that time.